I always thought marriage was like a sitcom until I realized I was the punchline. My name is Nick Rourke, and at 39, I've learned that trust is just another word for stupidity with better marketing. I used to be a cop, back when I believed in right and wrong. Now I'm a security consultant, which is just a fancy way of saying I help rich people feel safer about their bad decisions. The morning everything started unraveling began like any other Tuesday in our pristine suburban hell. Allison, my wife of 8 years, stood at the marble kitchen counter in her designer workout clothes, scrolling through her phone with the intensity of a day trader watching the market crash. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that effortless ponytail that probably took 20 minutes to achieve, and she had that distant look she'd been wearing like expensive perfume for the past 6 months. "Coffee's getting cold," I said, sliding the mug across the counter toward her. She didn't look up. "I'm not hungry. It's coffee, not food. Whatever." Her manicured fingers danced across the screen, typing something that made her smile. Not the smile she used to give me, but something secretive and electric. I watched her over my own mug, noting the way she angled the phone away from me, the way she bit her lower lip when she typed. These were the details that made me a good cop and now made me a paranoid husband. The difference was that paranoid husbands don't get badges or backup. "Late night again tonight," she said without looking up. "Marketing presentation for the Henderson account. On a Tuesday? Important client." She finally glanced at me, and for a split second, I saw something flicker in her green eyes. Guilt, maybe, or annoyance at being questioned. "Derek wants the whole team there. Derek Lane, her boss, mentor, and according to my growing suspicions, the reason my wife had started wearing perfume to work and coming home smelling like someone else's cologne. Derek was everything I wasn't: rich, connected, and smooth enough to sell ice to Eskimos. He drove a Tesla, wore suits that cost more than my monthly salary, and had the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about consequences. Right," I said. "Derek." Allison's phone buzzed. She read the message and that secret smile returned, wider this time. "I have to go. Big day ahead." She kissed my cheek, a perfunctory peck that felt more like a business transaction than affection, and headed for the garage. I listened to her BMW purr to life and fade down the street, then sat in the sudden silence of our beautiful empty house. The kitchen was a monument to Allison's success. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, and a coffee machine that cost more than most people's cars. Everything was perfect, sterile, and cold. Kind of like our marriage had become. I was still sitting there 20 minutes later when my phone rang. Joel Martinez, my best friend since high school, and the only person who still called me out on my bullshit. "You sound like someone died," he said without preamble. "Just the usual marital bliss. Ugh, trouble in paradise again." Joel owned an auto repair shop downtown and had the kind of straightforward wisdom that came from fixing things that were actually broken. He'd been warning me about Derek for months, ever since Allison started working late and talking about her boss like he was some kind of corporate messiah. "She's working late again tonight," I said. "Let me guess, another important presentation. Henderson account this time." Joel snorted. "That guy's got roaming hands and a rental heart, Nick. I've seen him around town. He collects married women like some people collect stamps." "You don't know that. I know guys like him. They think marriage vows are more like marriage suggestions." Huh. After Joel hung up, I sat in the kitchen for another hour, drinking coffee that had gone bitter and cold. The house felt bigger when Allison wasn't in it, like a museum of our former happiness. Wedding photos smiled down from the walls, showing two people who looked like strangers now. I decided to clean out Allison's purse, something I'd done dozens of times before, when looking for receipts or her spare car keys. It was sitting on the counter where she'd left it, a designer bag that cost more than most people's rent. Inside, beneath the usual debris of lipstick, breath mints, and business cards, I found something that made my blood freeze. A cocktail napkin from Romano's, the upscale steakhouse downtown, with a message written in Derek's distinctive handwriting. "Can't wait for Friday night. Gay D." Friday night, 3 days ago. The same Friday night Allison had claimed to be at a girls' night with her sister Harper and their friends. I stared at the napkin for a long time, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. It wasn't surprise, exactly. More like confirmation of something I'd been trying not to believe. When Allison came home that night at nearly 11, I was waiting in the living room with a glass of whiskey and what I hoped was a casual expression. "How was the presentation?" I asked. She dropped her purse and kicked off her heels. "Exhausting. Derek had us going over every detail until almost 10. Sounds intense. You have no idea. She headed for the stairs, then paused. I'm going to shower and go straight to bed. Long day tomorrow, too. Allison. She turned, and I saw wariness creep into her eyes. Everything okay? You seem distant lately. For a moment, I thought she might tell me the truth. Her mouth opened slightly, and I could see her weighing her words. Then her expression hardened into that professional smile she used with difficult clients. I'm fine, Nick. Just stressed about work. You know how it is. Actually, I don't. You never talk about work anymore, because you wouldn't understand. It's complicated. Try me. She sighed, the sound of someone dealing with a particularly slow child. Look, I'm tired. Can we not do this tonight? Do what? This. The interrogation. The paranoid husband routine. Her voice was getting sharper now, more defensive. I work hard, Nick. I'm building something important. I'm sorry if that means I can't sit around here every night watching Netflix and pretending we're still 25. The words hit like physical blows. When did I become the enemy? You're not the enemy. You're just... She paused, searching for the right words. You're stuck, Nick. You're stuck in this little world where nothing changes and nothing matters, and some of us want more than that. She went upstairs, leaving me alone with my whiskey and the cocktail napkin that proved my wife was a liar. I sat there until the ice melted and the whiskey went warm, thinking about Derek Lane and his roaming hands and rental heart. If I was paranoid, I might as well enjoy the ride. The next few days passed in a haze of forced normalcy and growing suspicion. Allison continued her pattern of early mornings and late nights, always with perfectly reasonable explanations that felt like lies wrapped in expensive paper. I started paying attention to details I'd been ignoring for months, the way she guarded her phone, the new clothes that appeared in her closet, the fact that she'd started going to the gym at times when I couldn't verify she was actually there. On Thursday night, she announced another girls' night. Harper's been having a rough time, she said, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. She was wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, something that hugged her curves and made her look like she was going somewhere much more exciting than dinner with her sister. Derek's been working late a lot, and she's feeling neglected. Derek, Harper's husband, Allison's boss, the man whose handwriting was on a napkin in my wife's purse. That's rough, I said. Tell Harper I said hi. Allison paused, lipstick halfway to her mouth. Sure. After she left, I called Joel. Want to do something stupid? I asked. Always. What kind of stupid? The kind that might save my marriage or end it. An hour later, Joel and I were parked outside Romano's, in his pickup truck, watching the valet stand through binoculars that Joel had borrowed from his nephew's Boy Scout troop. This is either really smart or really pathetic, Joel said, adjusting the focus. Probably both. There. Joel handed me the binoculars. Black Tesla, your boy Derek. I watched Derek Lane emerge from his car like he owned the world. He was tall, silver-haired, and wore a suit that probably cost more than my truck. He moved with the confidence of a man who'd never been told no, never been denied anything he wanted. Arrogant bastard, Joel muttered. We waited. 20 minutes later, a familiar BMW pulled up to the valet stand. My wife stepped out wearing the black dress and a smile I hadn't seen in months. She looked beautiful, radiant, alive in a way that made my chest ache. Derek met her at the restaurant entrance, and even from 50 yards away, I could see the way they looked at each other. Jesus, Nick, Joel said quietly. I watched through the binoculars as Derek placed his hand on the small of Allison's back, guiding her into the restaurant. It was an intimate gesture, possessive and familiar, the gesture of a man who knew exactly how a woman's body felt under his hands. I need pictures, I said. Joel was already pulling out his phone. Way ahead of you. We sat in the truck for 2 hours, taking photos when they appeared in the restaurant window, documenting their intimate dinner like private investigators in a bad movie. They sat close together, leaning in to whisper, touching hands across the table. At one point, Derek reached over and brushed something from Allison's cheek, and she caught his hand and held it there. That's not a business dinner, Joel said. No, it's not. Around 10:30, they emerged from the restaurant. Derek's hand was on Allison's back again, lower this time, almost proprietary. They stood by the valet stand talking, their bodies angled toward each other like they were the only two people in the world. Then Derek leaned down and kissed her. Not a friendly kiss, not a business kiss, a real kiss, deep and hungry and full of promise. My wife melted into him like she was coming home. Joel lowered his phone. Nick, I'm sorry. I watched my wife kiss another man, and felt something break inside me, something that had been cracking for months, finally giving way completely. It wasn't just anger, though that was there. It wasn't just betrayal, though that cut deep. It was the realization that the woman I'd loved for 8 years had become a stranger, and I'd been too blind or too stubborn to see it. "Take me home," I said. We drove in silence. When Joel dropped me off, he gripped my shoulder. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet." "Don't do anything stupid. Too late for that." Allison came home at midnight, humming softly and smelling like Derek's cologne. She found me in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee and my laptop. "You're up late," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Couldn't sleep." "How was girls' night?" "Fine. Harper's doing better." She moved toward the stairs, then paused. "What are you working on?" I looked at my laptop screen, where I'd been researching divorce lawyers for the past hour. "Just some case files, security consultation stuff." "Right. Well, I'm exhausted. See you in the morning." She went upstairs, and I listened to the shower run for 20 minutes. When she finally went to bed, I sat in the dark kitchen, staring at the photos on Joel's phone, and trying to figure out what came next. And that's when I remembered something Allison had mentioned in passing weeks ago. Derek was married to Harper, Allison's younger sister. The same Harper who was supposedly having a rough time because her husband was working late. And the same Harper who had no idea her husband was sleeping with her sister. I looked at the photos again, at my wife's face glowing with happiness as she kissed another woman's husband, and felt the first stirrings of an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. Probably both. I was still sitting in the dark when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You're not the only one being played. 11 p.m. tomorrow. Your house. Don't be late." And Friday crawled by like a wounded animal. Allison left early for another important meeting and came home just long enough to change clothes and announce another late night. "Big client dinner," she said, applying perfume that smelled like lies and expensive flowers. "Derek's bringing the whole team. On a Friday night. Important client." She was wearing a red dress this time, something that made her look like sin in designer clothing. "Don't wait up." After she left, I sat in the living room, checking my phone every few minutes and wondering if the mysterious text was some kind of elaborate prank. Joel had offered to come over and wait with me, but I needed to face whatever was coming alone. At exactly 11 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened the door and felt my world tilt sideways. Harper Lane stood on my doorstep, and she was absolutely stunning. I'd always known Allison's younger sister was attractive, but seeing her up close, angry and electric with fury, was like looking directly into the sun. She had the same blonde hair as Allison, but longer, wilder, the same green eyes, but brighter, more alive. She wore a tight black dress and heels that made her legs look like they went on forever, and she was trembling with barely controlled rage. "Your wife," she said without preamble, "is on a date with my husband right now." She held up her phone, showing me a location tracking app. Two dots pulsed on the screen, one labeled Derek and one labeled Allison, both at Romano's restaurant. "I know," I said. Harper's eyebrows shot up. "You know? I've known for a while. The question is, how long have you known?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I figured it out last week when I found a receipt in Derek's jacket. Romano's, Tuesday night, the same Tuesday night he told me he was working late." She stepped closer, and I caught her scent, something warmer and more honest than Allison's expensive perfume. "The same Tuesday night your wife told you she was having dinner with me." Jesus! It gets better. I called the restaurant. They remember them. Apparently they're regulars now. Every Tuesday and Friday for the past 2 months. We stood there for a moment, two people united by betrayal, and the kind of anger that made your teeth ache. "So," Harper said, tilting her head and giving me a smile that was equal parts invitation and challenge, "are you going to go confront them, or are you going to invite me in for a drink?" I looked at this beautiful, furious woman standing on my doorstep, then thought about my wife kissing another man in the parking lot of Romano's restaurant. "Forget them," I said, stepping aside. "Come in." Harper walked into my house like she owned it, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She looked around the living room, taking in the wedding photos and carefully arranged furniture. "Nice place," she said. "Very perfect. Allison likes things perfect." Allison likes a lot of things, apparently. I poured us both wine, expensive stuff that Allison had been saving for a special occasion. This seemed special enough. "How long have you suspected?" Harper asked, settling onto the couch and crossing her legs in a way that made it hard to think straight. Months, maybe. Little things at first. Working late, new clothes, the way she guarded her phone. I sat down across from her, trying to maintain some distance. You? Derek's been different for about 6 months. More attentive, actually. Guilty conscience, I guess. He started buying me expensive jewelry and taking me to fancy restaurants, like he was trying to make up for something. She took a sip of wine. I thought he was having a midlife crisis. Turns out he was just having my sister. The bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. I'm sorry, I said. Are you? Because honestly, I'm not sure I am. She leaned forward, and I caught another hint of that warm scent. Do you know what it's like being married to Derek Lane? Everything has to be perfect, controlled, exactly the way he wants it. I've been playing the perfect wife for 5 years, and apparently it wasn't enough to keep him interested. It's not about you, isn't it? She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street. Allison's always been the successful one, the perfect one. Even when we were kids, she got everything she wanted. I guess that includes my husband. There was something in her voice, a vulnerability beneath the anger that made my chest tight. She doesn't deserve him, I said, then caught myself. I mean, she doesn't deserve to have everything. Harper turned around, and her smile was sharp and dangerous. No, she doesn't. We talked for another hour, sharing war stories and resentments, bonding over betrayal and expensive wine. Harper was funny in a way that Allison had never been, sharp and quick and unafraid to say exactly what she was thinking. She talked about her marriage like it was a business arrangement, all surface and no substance. Derek thinks he's so clever, she said, curling up on the couch with her legs tucked under her. He has no idea I've been tracking his phone for months. I know about every late night, every mysterious meeting, every lie he's told me. Why haven't you confronted him? Because I wanted to be sure, and because, she paused, looking at me over the rim of her wine glass. Because I was waiting for the right moment to make it count. And this is it? This is it. She set down her glass and looked at me with an expression that made my pulse quicken. Nick, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think I'm attractive? The question hit me like a physical blow. Harper, it's a simple question. Do you think I'm attractive? I looked at her, really looked at her, sitting in my living room in that black dress, her hair falling over one shoulder, her green eyes bright with wine and mischief, and something more dangerous. Yes, I said. I think you're beautiful. More beautiful than Allison? Harper, that's not. More beautiful than your wife? The way she said it, like a challenge and an invitation rolled into one, made something snap inside me. All the months of suspicion, all the nights of lying awake wondering what I'd done wrong, all the careful politeness and pretending everything was fine. Yes, I said, more beautiful than my wife. Harper smiled, slow and satisfied, and stood up from the couch. She walked over to where I was sitting and stopped just close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from her skin. Good, she said, because I think you're better than Derek, stronger, more honest, more real. She reached out and touched my face, her fingers soft against my cheek. And I think they're both idiots for throwing us away. When she kissed me, it felt like coming back to life. We made love in the bed I shared with Allison, and it felt like revenge and redemption rolled into one. Harper was everything Allison wasn't, passionate, present, unafraid to show what she wanted. She made sounds that Allison never made, touched me like she meant it, looked at me like I was the only person in the world. Afterward, we lay tangled in sheets that smelled like betrayal and new possibilities, talking in whispers about the future and what came next. They have no idea what's coming, Harper said, tracing patterns on my chest with her fingertip. What is coming? She looked up at me with eyes that glittered in the darkness. Justice. I woke up the next morning to the smell of coffee and bacon. Harper was in my kitchen wearing nothing but one of my dress shirts, cooking breakfast like she belonged there. Her hair was messy from sleep and sex, and she looked more beautiful than any woman had a right to look at 7 in the morning. Morning, handsome, she said, not looking up from the stove. How do you like your eggs? Scrambled, I said, still trying to process the surreal normalcy of the moment. Good choice. She glanced at me over her shoulder. Sleep well? Better than I have in months. Good. Because we're going to need our energy for what comes next. That's when we heard the garage door opening. Harper and I looked at each other, and her smile turned predatory. Showtime. Allison walked into the kitchen 30 seconds later, still wearing the red dress from her date with Derek, her hair disheveled and her makeup smeared. She looked like a woman who'd spent the night doing things she shouldn't have been doing. She stopped dead when she saw Harper standing at the stove in my shirt. What the hell? Allison's voice was barely a whisper. Harper turned around, spatula in hand, and gave her sister a bright smile. Oh, hi, Allison. Funny running into you here. How was your business dinner? Allison's face went white, then red, then white again. Her eyes darted between Harper and me, taking in the obvious implications of the scene. Nick, she said, her voice shaking. What is this? I looked at my wife, really looked at her, standing in our kitchen in her wrinkled dress, demanding explanations she had no right to ask for. This, I said, walking over to Harper and putting my arm around her waist, is what happens when you go on date nights with other people's husbands. We decided to have our own date night. The sound Allison made was somewhere between a gasp and a sob. You can't be serious, she said. Harper leaned into me, fitting perfectly against my side. Oh, we're very serious. In fact, I'd say last night was the most serious fun I've had in years. Allison looked like she was going to be sick. The kitchen fell silent, except for the sound of bacon sizzling in the pan, and Allison's sharp, rapid breathing. She stood frozen in the doorway, still clutching her purse, looking like someone had just explained quantum physics using interpretive dance. This isn't happening, she said, more to herself than to us. Harper turned off the burner and set the spatula down with deliberate precision. Oh, it's happening, just like you and Derek have been happening for the past 2 months. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Harper's voice was calm, almost conversational. You've been screwing my husband while lying to yours. It's not exactly rocket science. Allison's face crumpled. Harper, please, it's not what you think. Really? Because I think it's exactly what it looks like. I think you're a cheating, lying, selfish bitch who thought she could have everything she wanted without consequences. The words hit Allison like physical blows. She stumbled backward, her hand reaching for the doorframe for support. Nick, she said, turning to me with desperate eyes. You have to listen to me. This is all a misunderstanding. I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved and trusted and built a life with, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Actually, I think I understand perfectly. You've been having dinner at Romano's twice a week with Derek, while telling me you were working late or having girls' nights with Harper. You've been lying to me for months, treating me like I'm too stupid to notice. It's not like that. Then what is it like? My voice was getting louder now, months of suppressed anger finally finding its way out. Explain to me how having intimate dinners with your boss, while your husband sits at home wondering what he did wrong, is somehow not what it looks like. Allison opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in months, she was speechless. That's when Harper's phone rang. She looked at the screen and smiled. It's Derek, she said, then swiped to answer and put the call on speaker. Hi, honey. Derek's voice filled the kitchen, smooth and confident, and completely oblivious. Harper, baby, where are you? I came home and you weren't here. I'm at my sister's house, Harper said, her eyes never leaving Allison's face. Having breakfast with her husband. Oh. Well, when you're done with whatever family drama is happening, we need to talk. I have something important to tell you. Actually, Derek, I have something important to tell you too. Harper's smile was sharp enough to cut diamonds. I'm leaving you. Silence on the other end of the line. What? I'm leaving you, for Nick, Allison's husband. We're in love. More silence, longer this time. Harper, what the hell are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that you've been cheating on me with my sister for 2 months. I'm talking about Romano's restaurant and late-night business meetings and all the lies you thought I was too stupid to figure out. The silence stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. Then Derek's voice came back, smaller now, uncertain. Harper, I can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can. You're very good at explaining things, Derek. Very good at making people believe whatever you want them to believe. But I'm done listening to your explanations. You can't be serious about this. I'm very serious. In fact, Nick and I spent last night getting very serious in his marital bed, multiple times. Allison made a sound like a wounded animal. Derek's voice exploded from the phone. You did what? What you've been doing, sweetheart. The only difference is, we're being honest about it. I heard Derek breathing hard on the other end of the line. Could practically see him pacing around his expensive house, trying to figure out how to regain control of a situation that had spiraled completely beyond his reach. Harper, listen to me. We need to talk about this rationally. Rationally? Harper laughed, bright and sharp. Like how rationally you approached sleeping with my sister? That's different. How is it different, Derek? How is what you did different from what I did? Another long silence. Because, Derek's voice trailed off. Because what? Because you're a man? Because you deserve to have whatever you want? Because I'm supposed to sit at home being the perfect wife while you run around town with Allison? Harper, please. I'm done, Derek. We're done. I'll be by this afternoon to get my things. Have your lawyer call mine. She hung up and looked at Allison, who was now openly crying. Your turn, Harper said. Allison wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her already ruined makeup. Harper, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen. For months. It started as nothing. Just work dinners, professional conversations. Derek was helping me with my career, and I was grateful. And then, she trailed off, looking helplessly between Harper and me. And then you decided to show your gratitude by spreading your legs, Harper said coldly. Allison flinched. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you decided you wanted something that belonged to me, and you took it without caring about the consequences. I never meant to hurt you, but you did hurt me. You hurt both of us, Harper gestured toward me. You threw away 8 years of marriage for what? A few fancy dinners and some mediocre sex with my husband? You don't understand what it's like being married to him, Allison said, pointing at me. Everything is so safe, so predictable. Derek made me feel alive again, made me feel like I mattered. The words hit me like a slap. I made you feel like you mattered for 8 years. Did you? Because it felt more like you took me for granted, like I was just another piece of furniture in your perfect little life. That's not true, isn't it? Allison's voice was getting stronger now, her tears drying as anger took their place. When was the last time you surprised me, Nick? When was the last time you made me feel like the most important person in your world? When was the last time you gave me the chance? I shot back. You've been pulling away for months, working late, making excuses, treating me like an inconvenience. How was I supposed to make you feel important when you barely acknowledged I existed? Because I was trying to build something. I was trying to become someone worth being married to. By sleeping with someone else's husband, Allison's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Harper watched the exchange with obvious satisfaction, like someone enjoying a particularly good movie. This is insane, Allison finally said. You can't seriously be choosing her over me. She's my sister. Was your sister, Harper corrected. Past tense. Harper, please. We can work this out. We're family. Family doesn't steal each other's husbands. I didn't steal him. It just happened. Nothing just happens, Allison. You made choices. You chose to lie to your husband, chose to betray your sister, chose to put your own desires ahead of everyone else's feelings. Those were deliberate decisions. Allison looked at me with desperate eyes. Nick, you can't throw away 8 years of marriage for one mistake. One mistake. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. This wasn't one mistake, Allison. This was months of lies, months of treating me like an idiot, months of coming home smelling like another man and expecting me to pretend I didn't notice. I can change. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. No, I said, and the word felt like freedom. We can't, because I don't want to. The truth of it hit me as I said it. I didn't want to work through this. I didn't want to spend months or years rebuilding trust that should never have been broken in the first place. I didn't want to pretend that things could go back to the way they were before I knew what I knew. And I didn't want to give up, Harper. Get out, I said. Nick, get out of my house. Take whatever you need for now, and we'll figure out the rest later. But I want you gone. Allison looked between Harper and me one more time, her face cycling through disbelief, anger, and something that might have been grief. This isn't over, she said finally. Yes, Harper said, moving closer to me and taking my hand. It is. After Allison left, Harper and I sat at the kitchen table, eating breakfast and planning our next moves. The food tasted better than anything I'd eaten in months, and Harper looked beautiful in the morning light streaming through the windows. So, she said, spearing a piece of bacon with her fork. What now? Now we file for divorce, both of us. And then, I looked at this incredible woman who'd walked into my life at exactly the right moment, who'd shown me what I'd been missing, who'd reminded me what it felt like to be wanted. And then we see what happens next. Harper smiled, and it was like sunrise after the longest night of my life. I like the sound of that. The next few weeks passed in a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and the kind of delicious chaos that comes from watching carefully constructed lies crumble in real time. Harper moved in with me temporarily, claiming the guest room, but spending most nights in my bed, and together we orchestrated the kind of revenge that would have made Machiavelli proud. It started small. Harper had kept screenshots of Derek's location data, showing his regular visits to Romano's on nights when he claimed to be working late. She also had photos of credit card statements showing expensive jewelry purchases that she'd never received, dinners at restaurants she'd never been to, and hotel charges for rooms she'd never slept in. I had my own evidence, the photos Joel and I had taken, the napkin from Allison's purse, and a growing collection of text messages and emails that painted a clear picture of an affair that had been going on much longer than 2 months. "We need to be smart about this," Harper said one morning over coffee. She was wearing one of my shirts again, and I was beginning to think it looked better on her than it ever had on me. "We can't just dump everything at once. We need to make it count." What did you have in mind?" Her smile was pure evil genius. "A campaign. Strategic, targeted, devastating." The first strike came on a Tuesday. Harper had lunch with Allison's best friends, Simone and Marla, at their usual spot downtown. She played the role of the devastated sister perfectly, crying into her salad while sharing carefully edited details about discovering the affair. "I just can't believe she would do this to me," Harper sobbed, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "My own sister, sleeping with my husband. How could she be so selfish?" Simone and Marla, who'd been Allison's cheerleaders for years, suddenly found themselves in the uncomfortable position of defending the indefensible by